There's a moment that a lot of people over 60 know intimately. You wake up in the morning, open your eyes, and the world is not quite there yet. Everything is soft at the edges, slightly out of focus, and you wait for it to clear. Sometimes it does after a few minutes. Sometimes it takes longer. And sometimes, if you are honest with yourself, it never fully clears the way it used to. You squint at a restaurant menu across the table. You find yourself leaning closer to your phone than you used to. You notice that headlights at night have started to bloom into something uncomfortable, almost blinding, and you find yourself gripping the steering wheel a little more tightly than you once did. Most people are told the same thing when they bring this up. It is just part of getting older. Your eyes are aging. That is what happens. And then they are handed a stronger prescription, maybe a bottle of artificial tears, and sent home. But here is what that conversation almost never includes, and what I have come to believe is one of the most important things an older adult can understand about their own eye health. The decline most people experience is not simply the unavoidable passage of time. It is the result of specific, identifiable biological processes taking place inside the eye. Processes that have names, mechanisms, and in many cases, meaningful responses to the right nutritional inputs. The eye researchers who have been quietly building this body of evidence over the past 2 decades are not on the fringe. Their findings have been published in respected peer-reviewed journals. And what they keep returning to is the same fundamental insight. Your eyes do their most critical repair work while you sleep. And whether or not your body has the raw materials to carry out that repair work depends largely on what you ate in the hours before you close your eyes. Let me explain what is actually happening inside your eye as you age, because understanding the mechanism is what makes everything that follows make sense. The retina is a thin layer of light-sensitive tissue lining the back of your eye. It contains millions of specialized cells called photoreceptors, and these cells are responsible for capturing incoming light and converting it into electrical signals that travel to your brain and become what you experience as sight. These cells are among the most metabolically active in your entire body. They work continuously, they consume oxygen at a remarkable rate, and they are exposed to an extraordinary amount of oxidative stress over the course of a lifetime. As you move into your 60s and beyond, several things happen simultaneously that put these cells under increasing pressure. Oxidative damage accumulates faster than the eye can neutralize it. Chronic low-grade inflammation develops in the delicate tissues of the eye. Blood flow to the retina gradually slows, meaning less oxygen and fewer nutrients are reaching the tissue that needs them most. In a process called glycation, where excess blood sugar attaches to proteins and damages them, begins to cloud the lens and degrade the retinal environment in ways that build silently over years before they become visible. Most vision loss in older adults is not sudden. It creeps in at the edges. It dims slowly. And because it is gradual, people adapt to it without realizing how much they have already lost. The blurry morning vision, the difficulty adjusting between bright and dim environments, the halos around lights at night, the eye fatigue after reading even a short article. These are not random inconveniences. They are signals from a system that is not getting what it needs. And here is where the research has taken a genuinely exciting turn in recent years. Scientists studying the biochemistry of nighttime eye repair have identified specific natural compounds found in everyday fruits that directly address the most destructive of these processes. Compounds that can support the regeneration of photoreceptor cells, improve retinal circulation, reduce oxidative damage, and help restore the visual pigments that allow your eyes to function well in low light and during nighttime recovery. What is particularly compelling is that many of these fruits are not exotic or expensive. Several of them are likely already in your kitchen. But most people are either not eating them at the right time, or not eating them in a way that maximizes their benefit for the eye specifically. My name is Dr. Nathan Pierce, and I have spent a significant portion of my career working with older adults who are committed to protecting their vision using approaches that are grounded in current science rather than guesswork. Today, I want to walk you through 7 fruits that research links to overnight eye support, what each one does at the cellular level, and exactly how to use each one for maximum effect. I also want to share 5 rules that apply to all of them, because without these foundational principles, you could eat every fruit on this list and still not get the benefit your eyes are looking for. And one thing I want to be clear about before we begin. What I share here is educational in nature and is meant to complement, not replace, the guidance of a qualified eye care professional. If you're experiencing vision changes or have been diagnosed with any eye condition, please work with a licensed provider as you explore these approaches. Your vision is not something to experiment with carelessly. Let us begin with the 7th fruit on the list, and it is one most people walk right past at the grocery store without a second thought. Kiwi. Small, slightly fuzzy, not particularly impressive to look at. But for aging eyes, kiwi delivers something that eye researchers consistently highlight, and the evidence behind it is more substantial than most people realize. The retina, as it ages, becomes increasingly vulnerable to a specific kind of damage driven by blue light exposure and oxidative stress. Every screen you look at, every bright overhead light, every hour of daylight accumulates over a lifetime and leaves a residue of cellular wear in the photoreceptors. The 2 nutrients that function as the eye's primary internal defense against this kind of damage are lutein and zeaxanthin. These carotenoids sit within the layers of the retina and act as a natural optical filter, absorbing harmful wavelengths of light and providing antioxidant protection during the nightly repair cycle. And golden kiwi is one of the more concentrated food sources of both. Beyond its carotenoid content, kiwi also contains a modest but meaningful amount of serotonin, the precursor to melatonin. This makes it uniquely positioned among eye-supportive fruits because it gently supports deeper, more restorative sleep, and deep sleep is when the eye's most intensive repair activity occurs. The relationship between sleep quality and visual health is one that is chronically underappreciated in mainstream discussions of eye care. Published research following older adults who consumed 2 golden kiwis daily over a sustained period found measurable improvements in visual sharpness and significant reductions in morning dryness and eye redness. Those are not trivial outcomes for a piece of fruit. The practical guidance here is simple. Eat 2 golden kiwis, not the standard green variety, approximately 1 hour before bed. Golden kiwis carry a higher concentration of lutein, are less acidic on the stomach, and are gentler on the digestive system late in the evening. When you eat them, scoop the flesh out with a spoon rather than peeling to the very edge. The thin layer of flesh immediately beneath the skin is rich in caffeic acid, a concentrated antioxidant compound. Leaving it intact rather than discarding it with the skin means your eyes receive more of what the research points to. The 6th fruit is one most people enjoy in summer without ever connecting it to eye health, and that is watermelon. The connection here begins with a frustrating symptom, that morning blurriness that sometimes takes an hour to fully resolve, if it resolves at all. Part of what drives that is reduced overnight circulation to the retina combined with dehydration of the delicate ocular tissues. Watermelon is over 90% water, which addresses the hydration component directly. But the more interesting story is in its carotenoid content. Watermelon is among the richest known dietary sources of lycopene, a powerful antioxidant carotenoid that has been linked in observational research to meaningfully reduced oxidative damage in retinal tissue and a potential protective influence against both cataract formation and the progression of macular degeneration. People who regularly consume watermelon also tend to maintain higher circulating levels of lutein and zeaxanthin, suggesting that lycopene may play a role in supporting the broader carotenoid ecosystem that protects the eye. There is also emerging evidence that compounds in watermelon support nitric oxide production, which promotes dilation of the small blood vessels, including the tiny capillaries that feed the retina. Better capillary dilation means more oxygen and more nutrients delivered to the back of the eye during sleep, which is precisely the window when those nutrients are most needed and most actively used. 1 to 2 cups of chilled seedless watermelon consumed about 30 minutes before bed is the practical recommendation here. One important caution: do not add salt. Sodium raises intraocular pressure, and elevated intraocular pressure is one of the most significant modifiable risk factors for glaucoma-related vision loss. Keep the watermelon plain or pair it with a few drops of lime juice. Also, do not discard the white rind. That pale section between the green skin and the red flesh contains citrulline, an amino acid that supports healthy blood vessel function and contributes to the overnight nourishment of ocular tissue. You can blend it into a smoothie or cook it down if the texture on its own is unappealing. And number 5, we have a fruit that most people in North America have genuinely never purchased and may not even be able to identify by sight. Black currants. Small, deep purple, almost black, with an intensity of flavor that reflects an equally intense concentration of protective compounds. What black currants specifically address is a combination of retinal microinflammation and reduced blood flow to the optic nerve, two processes that quietly drive some of the most frustrating visual symptoms of aging, including halos around lights at night, difficulty adjusting between bright and dark environments, and a progressive increase in eye strain under low light conditions. The compounds responsible for these effects are anthocyanins, the deeply pigmented molecules that give black currants their dark color. Inside the eye, anthocyanins accomplish several things simultaneously. They quiet inflammatory signaling. They support the dilation of blood vessels to improve circulation. And they assist in the regeneration of rhodopsin, the visual pigment in the rod cells of the retina that governs your ability to see in low light and to adapt when moving between differently lit environments. For anyone who has noticed that night driving has become more challenging or that walking between a bright room and a dim hallway takes longer than it used to, this regenerative effect on rhodopsin is directly relevant. The clinical evidence on black currant anthocyanins is genuinely compelling. A randomized controlled trial involving individuals with glaucoma found that a standardized daily dose of black currant anthocyanins over a 2-year period produced significant improvements in blood flow to the optic nerve and surrounding retinal regions, along with a meaningfully slower rate of visual field deterioration compared to participants receiving a placebo. A separate pilot study in a population with normal tension glaucoma found that these same anthocyanins improved retinal circulation without altering eye pressure, while also helping normalize a compound involved in the constriction of blood vessels. These are not minor effects, and they are not confined to people with diagnosed conditions. The underlying mechanisms are relevant to anyone whose retinal circulation is declining with age. Fresh black currants are rarely found in standard grocery stores. A standardized extract providing approximately 50 milligrams of anthocyanins taken in the evening is the most practical approach for most people. Pair it with a small amount of healthy fat, such as a few walnuts, or alongside a vitamin C source, such as a slice of orange, to enhance absorption. The synergy between these nutrients genuinely matters at the biochemical level. Number 4 is blueberries. And nearly everyone who hears this smiles because they feel like they already know this one. But here is what almost nobody knows. Most people are eating blueberries in a way that substantially cancels out the very benefit they are hoping to receive. The damage blueberries specifically address is oxidative deterioration of the photoreceptor cells, the specialized retinal cells responsible for fine detail, color discrimination, and light adaptation. The key active compound is pterostilbene, which is structurally related to resveratrol, but is absorbed significantly more efficiently by the body and has a demonstrated ability to cross the blood-retinal barrier, meaning it can actually reach the tissue that needs protection rather than being metabolized before it gets there. Research published in 2023 following older adults who consumed wild blueberries daily over 12 weeks found notable improvements in visual acuity and significant reductions in eye strain when viewing screens in low-light conditions. But the critical variable is which blueberries you are eating. The large, shiny, cultivated varieties that dominate the fresh produce section at most supermarkets have been shown to carry measurably lower concentrations of active antioxidant compounds than their smaller wild counterparts. The small, dark, slightly irregular wild blueberries found in the frozen section of most stores contain nearly double the relevant compound density. And frozen is not inferior to fresh. In this case, it is often superior because the freezing process itself begins breaking down cell walls in ways that can actually increase bioavailability. About a third of a cup of wild blueberries consumed 45 minutes before bed is the practical recommendation. The most important rule is this: do not eat them alongside dairy. The proteins in milk, yogurt, or any dairy product bind physically to anthocyanins in the digestive tract and block their absorption. This is not a theoretical concern. It has been demonstrated in absorption studies. Eat your blueberries alone or with a small amount of healthy fat, and lightly freeze them, and then allow them to thaw before eating. That freeze-thaw cycle ruptures the cell walls and dramatically increases the body's access to the compounds inside. And number 3, we arrive at a fruit that surprises almost everyone who hears about it in this context. Dragon fruit. Visually striking, increasingly available in larger grocery stores, but deeply misunderstood in terms of which variety matters and why. The specific problem dragon fruit addresses is retinal hypoxia, which is the condition where the retinal tissue is not receiving sufficient oxygen during sleep. When this occurs, you can sleep a full 8 hours and wake up feeling as though your eyes have barely rested. You notice visual fatigue that begins almost as soon as you start your day. Peripheral vision becomes slightly indistinct. Colors may appear flatter or less saturated than they once did. The key here is variety. You must seek out the red flesh variety of dragon fruit. The white flesh type does not contain the compounds we are discussing in meaningful amounts. Red dragon fruit is rich in betalains, a class of antioxidant pigments that research links to increased nitric oxide production in blood vessel walls. Nitric oxide is the signaling molecule that causes smooth muscle in vessel walls to relax, widening the capillaries, including the extraordinarily fine ones that supply blood to the retina. The result is increased oxygen delivery, more nutrients reaching retinal tissue during the deep phases of sleep, and a fundamentally better environment for cellular repair to take place. A study published in a peer-reviewed aging biology journal reported that participants who consumed red dragon fruit extract over 6 weeks showed meaningful improvements in ocular circulation, contrast sensitivity, and visual field depth. In practical language, they could see more clearly in low light and reported noticeably less blurry vision as an outcome. Half a red flesh dragon fruit about 1 hour before sleep is the guidance here. And the most commonly overlooked detail is this: the tiny black seeds embedded throughout the flesh are not decorative. They contain omega-3 fatty acids and magnesium, both of which are documented contributors to retinal nerve health and nighttime repair. If you swallow them whole, you receive almost none of this benefit. Chew them. The physical breakdown is necessary for your body to access what is inside. Number 2 on this list carries thousands of years of use behind it, which does not automatically make something effective, but which, in this case, has been increasingly validated by modern clinical research. Goji berries. Bright red, slightly chewy, with a mildly sweet flavor. They have been used in traditional medicine for centuries with a focus specifically on preserving eyesight. And the clinical science is beginning to explain why with precision. The specific target is macular integrity. The macula is the central zone of the retina, the region responsible for the sharp, detailed vision that allows you to read, recognize faces, distinguish fine textures, and see color with accuracy and depth. Age-related macular degeneration begins with a gradual thinning and degradation of this tissue driven by oxidative stress and circulatory insufficiency. It is the leading cause of irreversible central vision loss in older adults globally, and its early stages are almost entirely symptom-free until the damage is already substantial. What makes goji berries exceptional in this context is their concentration of zeaxanthin. While lutein protects primarily the outer regions of the retina, zeaxanthin concentrates specifically within the macula itself, offering targeted antioxidant defense exactly where macular degeneration begins. Goji berries are among the highest natural dietary sources of zeaxanthin identified to date. A clinical study published in Nutrition Journal followed adults aged 60 to 80 who consumed dried goji berries 5 days per week for 90 days. The results showed a statistically significant increase in macular pigment optical density, which is a direct and quantifiable measure of the protective pigment within the macula. Equally notable, not a single participant in the study demonstrated further progression of macular degeneration during the trial period. For anyone living with early macular changes or a family history of the condition, that finding warrants serious attention. 2 tablespoons of dried goji berries soaked in warm water for 10 minutes, then consumed approximately 30 minutes before sleep, is the practical protocol. The soaking softens them and improves their digestibility, which matters when eating close to bedtime. The pro tip with genuine science behind it is this. Pair your goji berries with a small square of high-quality dark chocolate containing at least 85% cacao. The flavonoids in cocoa have been shown in published research to enhance the intestinal absorption of zeaxanthin. Together, the combination creates a nutritional synergy that your macula can actually utilize, not just in theory, but in measurable terms. And finally, at number 1, the fruit that sits at the top of this list for aging eyes is papaya. Not exotic, not expensive, widely available. And when eaten correctly at the right time of evening, it addresses what may be the single most underappreciated process driving vision deterioration in older adults. That process is glycation. Glycation occurs when excess blood glucose molecules attach to proteins in the body's tissues, altering their structure and function. In the eye, this happens to the crystalline proteins that make up the lens and to the delicate proteins that maintain the architecture of the retinal environment. The result is a progressive clouding of the lens that eventually contributes to cataract formation and a degradation of retinal tissue that accelerates the very changes most associated with age-related visual decline. Glycation is happening silently and continuously in virtually every person over 60, and it is rarely discussed in the context of eye health because it lacks an obvious single-point intervention in conventional medicine. Papaya contains papain, a naturally occurring proteolytic enzyme with documented anti-inflammatory properties and a demonstrated ability to modulate protein modification in tissue. It also delivers a combination of vitamins A, C, and E alongside folate, nutrients that research consistently associates with tear film stability, retinal protection, reduce inflammatory signaling inside the eye, and structural support for the photoreceptor layer. A study in a clinical gerontology publication found that older adults who consumed papaya in the evening showed reduced glycation markers in follow-up testing, alongside stronger tear production and measurable improvements in contrast vision within 6 weeks. For anyone dealing with chronic dry eyes, blurry morning vision, or early lens cloudiness, those are outcomes worth paying attention to. 1 cup of ripe papaya, cubes, eaten approximately 1 hour before bed, is the recommendation. 2 details are non-negotiable. Fresh is substantially more effective than processed, as heat and processing destroy papain's enzymatic activity. And room temperature is meaningfully better than cold. Take your papaya out of the refrigerator at least 30 to 60 minutes before eating it. Cold temperatures significantly suppress enzyme activity, and you want papain fully functional when it reaches your digestive system and begins its work. Do not pair it with dairy for the same absorption-blocking reason that applies to blueberries. The pro tip that actually makes a noticeable difference is this. Squeeze fresh lime juice over your papaya just before eating. The vitamin C in a lime has been shown to meaningfully boost the body's uptake of vitamin A. Your eyes receive more of the fat-soluble protection they are looking for, and the flavor combination is genuinely one of the most satisfying things you can eat in the evening. Now, before you simply start adding these fruits to your evening routine, there are 5 rules that apply universally to all of them, and without these, the benefit you receive will be significantly diminished. The first rule is this. Keep a clear separation between these fruits and any high-calcium foods. If you eat papaya, blueberries, or any of the other fruits on this list within 90 minutes of consuming milk, yogurt, cheese, or calcium-fortified cereal, the calcium actively competes with and blocks the intestinal absorption of lutein and zeaxanthin. Research has demonstrated that high-calcium meals can reduce the absorption of these key eye nutrients by as much as 30%. Treat your evening fruit as a dedicated, standalone snack, not dessert after a dairy-heavy meal. Give your gut the space to absorb what you're giving it. The second rule is to always include a small amount of healthy fat alongside your fruit. Lutein, zeaxanthin, lycopene, beta-carotene, and most of the other protective compounds in these fruits are fat-soluble. Your body cannot absorb them efficiently without fat present in the digestive environment at the same time. A small handful of walnuts, a teaspoon of flaxseed oil, or a few slices of avocado eaten alongside, or just before your fruit, can increase the absorption of these compounds by more than 50% according to published bioavailability research. You're eating the same food and receiving dramatically better delivery to your eyes. That difference matters enormously over weeks and months of consistent practice. The third rule is about washing. This surprises people, but aggressive washing under high-pressure water removes a measurable portion of the surface antioxidants from fruits like blueberries and blackcurrants, where the most concentrated protective compounds are found in and immediately beneath the skin. Rinse gently under cool, running water. Pat dry rather than rubbing. And wash your fruit immediately before eating rather than hours in advance, as moisture accelerates surface oxidation once the fruit has been washed. The fourth rule is to let your fruit reach room temperature before eating it. This applies most critically to papaya because of its enzyme content, but it is relevant to several of the others as well. Enzyme activity in papaya drops sharply at refrigerator temperatures. Taking your fruit out of the refrigerator 30 to 60 minutes before eating gives the enzymatic activity time to fully restore so that when you consume it, your body receives the full functional benefit rather than a fraction of it. The fifth rule is timing, and this is the one that ties everything together. Eat your chosen fruit or combination of fruits between 60 and 90 minutes before going to sleep. Too early, and the nutrients are fully metabolized and cleared from circulation before your eyes enter their primary repair phase, which occurs during the deeper stages of sleep. Too late, and active digestion interferes with your ability to reach that deep sleep your eyes need to carry out the repair work in the first place. The 60 to 90-minute window is specific and it is meaningful. Within that window, these compounds are circulating in your bloodstream and available to the tissues of the eye precisely when the overnight repair process begins. Work backward from your typical sleep time and build that window into your evening consistently. What this all points to is something that should feel genuinely encouraging rather than overwhelming. Blurry vision in your 60s and beyond is not simply the price of admission for living a long life. It is frequently the downstream result of specific, addressable biological processes, oxidative damage accumulating in photoreceptors, chronic inflammation in delicate ocular tissue, reduced circulation to the retina, and glycation degrading the proteins that keep your lens clear and your retinal environment stable. These processes respond to nutritional inputs. The research on this is real, it is peer-reviewed, and it continues to build. Reading without reaching for your glasses. Driving at night with confidence rather than anxiety. Waking up in the morning and having the world come into focus quickly and cleanly. Looking at the faces of the people you love and seeing every detail. These are not small things. They're the texture of daily life, and they are worth protecting with the same seriousness you bring to your heart health or your bone density or any other dimension of physical well-being. Your eyes are doing their best for you every single hour of every single day. What you eat in the evening is one of the most direct and underutilized ways to give them what they need to keep doing that work well into the decades ahead.